With only the bush alien's map to guide us, we headed out into the desert. It was dark, but quite cool, making it the best time to travel. Above us, a few wispy clouds wandered by, and past that, the great ringed gas giant hung in the sky, with its swirling mass of colors. I took a moment to admire the strange beauty, and then got back to the business of trying not to get killed. We needed to put as much distance between ourselves and Udlam as possible. Once she discovered we were gone, she'd be after us with her sandworm, and then we'd be in serious trouble. Just as the sun was coming up, we saw a series of rocky outcrops with a wedge in between. The map indicated that this was the beginning of the entrance to the fortress. It was a good 3 miles in the distance, but I figured we could make it there before it got too hot. I was moderately optimistic until I saw a wake in the sand behind us that I recognized from the previous day. Charles saw it too. "Worm sign," he called, pointing. We ran. I had no idea how fast sandworms could move when they got going at top speed. I also had no idea if we could survive running in the desert, with no time to stop for water. But we had to keep going long enough to make it to safety. I didn't know a lot of things, but I knew I didn't want to fall back into Junip's hands. I heard the rumbling behind us and the scrape of sand on sand, but I wasn't stopping. The rocks were just ahead of us. We could make it. Once we reached them, we'd be safe. Safe from the worm, at least. Junip had people here, which meant there were traps we hadn't imagined. I couldn't let myself think about that, though. I just had to keep moving. Running in desert sand while carrying all your stuff, and with the sun creeping up behind you, is a really great workout. The Forbidden Zone fitness plan was going to make a lot of money, provided Junip didn't get his goaty hands on me. It was hard to work up a lot of speed, and even harder to keep it. With sweat stinging my eyes, I turned back to see the disturbance under the sand gaining on us. We had maybe half a mile to go when the sand in front of us began to swirl. Sand sprayed upward like a geyser, and the giant worm emerged ahead of us, massive and terrifying. On the saddle, a figure in dingy robes, presumably Udlam, turned to face us. She unwound the layers around her face. "Where are you going?" she demanded. "Why'd you run off like that?" "Give us a break, Udlam," I said. "We know." "Know what?" "This is pointless," Colonel Rage said. "The longer we stand here arguing, the longer she has to call for reinforcements." "Afraid that's true," Steve said. He had taken out his PPB pistol. He fired off a single blast, stunning Udlam. She was strapped into the saddle, I supposed for the purpose of traveling through the loose sand, so there was no danger of her falling off the creature. Instead, she slumped forward and dangled along the side of the worm. The worm, that was the one thing Steve hadn't considered when he'd shot Udlam. For a terrifying moment, the worm remained still, fixing us with its endless wriggling feelers. Then it cried out, "Friend hurt! Oh, the bright light, friend hurt!" The worm reared up, turning from bus to skyscraper in an instant. It was going to crush us or eat us or whatever it was that worms did to beings they didn't like. "Friend hurt!" it cried at us. None of us spoke. The worm writhed from side to side like it had been stung. "Friend hurt! Oh, friend is hurt! Going home! Taking friend home!" Then it rose into the air and flopped down facing the other direction, headed back the way it come. "Given our track record," the colonel said, "that worked out surprisingly well." We headed on towards the pass. By mid-morning, the sun was obscured by one of the mountains, and we had the advantage of shade, but we still had a ways to go. There was not a whole lot of talking going on, maybe because of the heat and our perpetual thirst, but also because tensions were high. We trudged on, the sun high above us, the air still, the great gas giant making its way across the station's dome. That night, we camped in an outcropping in the midst of the rocks. There was still no sign of renewed pursuit. The desert grew cold at night, but we dared not make a fire. I layered extra clothes on top of myself, using a couple of old t-shirts as makeshift gloves to keep my hands warm. We woke at dawn, and after a silent breakfast of rations, we were on our feet and marching further through the pass. At about noon, we found a small cave as marked on the map. It was about 5 feet wide, with a ceiling maybe 8 feet above us, and we were all grateful to get out of the heat. We stepped in, generating floating flashlights from our data bracelets, and made our way further inside. It was more of a passage than a cave, and we wound our way through, enjoying the cool and taking comfort in the distant, tiny sounds of dripping water. The cave was kind of beautiful. The walls were lined with glittering mineral deposits of blue and pink. We followed a winding path for maybe 200 feet, and then the cave widened into a cavern about as broad and tall as a house. At the far end of it, a downward staircase had been carved into the stone.
"I think we go that way,"
Steve volunteered. His voice echoed through the cavern. We began our descent and moved steadily into the mountain for the rest of the afternoon, taking the occasional food and water breaks. No one said it, but we all had the same worries. What if this path went nowhere? What if there was no hidden fortress, or if it no longer existed, or the way to gain access had been blocked? Why had no one ever returned? Of course, now I began to wonder if that was true. Udlam had, after all, not been honest about other things. Maybe Urch, or someone who looked like him, had never come this way at all. Maybe no one had. We spent another night camped out, this time in a dusty stone passageway leading off the stairs. We needed to find a place where no one would be in danger of tumbling to their death in the night. Here we felt a little less shy about making a fire, and in the flickering light, I watched Tamret, who purposely kept her gaze away from me. I wanted to go to her, to talk to her, to apologize for missing my chance to save her, but I didn't know if I could find the words. The next day we resumed our journey. About halfway through the morning we began to hear a rhythmic pounding, like the slamming of a machine. I didn't know if that was good news or bad, but at least it was something. Then the passageway opened into a great chamber, illuminated by an eerie, iridescent moss. A winding staircase led down the side of the rock wall, and below us, gleaming in the dim light, was a great metal structure. A nearly featureless silver cube, sitting in the midst of a sprawling cavern. In the dim light, it was hard to be sure how large it was, but I guessed it was at least a quarter-mile long on each side.
"Could be a fortress,"
Steve said.
"It's hidden,"
Alice agreed.
"Looks like a Borg cube,"
Charles said worriedly. So I felt pretty sure we'd found the hidden fortress. We also found the source of the thumping. We didn't see them at first, but there they were in the distance. Giant machines, maybe robots or mechs, with twisted, asymmetrical limbs stomping around, looking a whole lot like they would crush anything that tried to make it to the entrance. There must have been 30 of them that we could see. Given that they were 8 feet tall, nightmarish in appearance, and predisposed to stomping, I had the feeling they may not be as friendly as we would have wished. The giant mechanical monstrosities could be a problem, I said quietly.
"What are those things?"
the colonel asked. The catch-call sci-fi term would be mech, I explained.
"But what are they?"
The lack of symmetry suggests an absence of creative intent. Very likely the existing technology has reformed itself, or reformed under intelligent guidance, to secure the fortress.
Probably old tech. Repurposed to defend the fortress, I suggested aloud.
I think I know why no one ever came back,
Misan said.
Because those robot things probably killed them.
We retreated back, part of the way we came, in order to figure out what we were going to do.
"We have to go back,"
the colonel said.
"We don't know what those mechs can do, and there's no safe way to take their measure."
I would rather think of them as robots,
said Charles.
Calling them mechs implies that there are beings operating them from inside. Please,
Misan said.
Let Zeke be the annoying nerd. We don't need 2 of you.
"The point,"
said Colonel Rage irritably,
"is that we have to go back."
Go back to what? I asked. Junip, who wants us dead? The spaceport that doesn't exist? Where do you want to go exactly? The village of desert reptiles? They're crazy.
Being reptile and being crazy are 2 different things,
Steve said.
Don't suggest there's a connection.
"I'm not happy about this either," the colonel said. "But if we go back to Confederation Central and tell everything we know to the news collector people, then Junip won't be able to hurt us. You've played the system before, Zeke. We kept quiet because we thought it was in our best interest. Now speaking out is what will keep us safe. There are some risks here, but I'm not seeing any other choice.
We don't even know that those things will hurt us, I said. And even if they are dangerous, we've made our way into enemy buildings before.
None that were protected by ancient mechanical guardians,
Charles said.
Also, we had a complete intelligence file on the prison we broke into, and you and Temret were augmented. We knew exactly what to expect, and we had the means to win. Now we could face 1,000 of those things down there, each one heavily armed and programmed to destroy intruders. We simply don't know.
I didn't want to admit it, but Charles was right. I'd come all this way to honor my friends who had died, to finish the mission, to do something good. I wanted it all to mean something. If I were to go home without Temret, without a chance of getting Earth into the Confederation, then at least I wanted to know I'd made some kind of difference. Now it looked like I was going to return to Junip and simply hope we got off without prison time. It felt pathetic and pointless. Maybe you're right, I said.
Are you kidding me? Smelly asked. You came all this way and you're just going to turn around?
I don't see any alternative, I said.
Then we all agree,
Mi-san said.
The alternative is that you lead your friends down there, neutralize the defensive tech, and explore that fortress. The base code of the skill tree is down there. I can smell it. It is there for the taking, but you have to be willing to actually go into that building.
How am I going to do that exactly?
Do what, mate?
Steve asked. I held up my hand like I was on the phone and needed them to be quiet. Smelly sighed loudly, which wasn't something you expected from an artificial intelligence without a mouth or lungs.
You'll do it with my help. I know my way around that technology better than any meatbag. Me and those security bots, we're practically cousins. Though they're cousins without brains or sense of self.
I don't know that the fact you come from the same factory is going to be good enough.
Then how about this? For however long it takes me to shut those things down, or to determine that they're safe, you'll be protected by the military skill tree.
I don't think you've been paying attention. The technology is down there. I can't use it if I don't have it yet. The whole reason for us being here is to get it.
There may be some things I may not quite have mentioned,
Smelly said.
You actually do have the skill tree. Dr. Roop implanted it in you before you left the station last time.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you've had it the whole time. It's like one of those inspirational stories in which the character is out on their quest to find the thing that he had within itself all along. Pretty crazy, right?
I don't understand, I said, having a hard time containing my frustration. If I had this tech, why did I need to build that suit?
The suit? You are stupid, aren't you? That was a rubber suit with some LEDs sewn in to make it look fancy. How is that going to make you invisible? Next time you'll be believing the Tooth Fairy's real. Come on, Zeke. I had you build it so you wouldn't know about the skill tree.
This whole time, I'd had access to incredible powers, and Smelly hadn't told me. I couldn't get my head around this. Why did you keep this a secret, exactly?
At first, because I didn't think you could control it, Zeke. You know I'm fond of you, but you're still just one step up from a jellyfish. The suit was a convenient fiction while I worked on being able to integrate and manipulate the tech tree, and to keep you from accessing too much power before I could sufficiently control your nervous system. Then, when we made contact with the Confederation, letting others know about the tree would have put our lives in danger. To disseminate the tech tree, they would have needed the base code, and the only way to get the software out of your head would have been to literally cut it out. They'd have had to kill you for it, and I wasn't about to let that happen to my special meatbag.
Every conflict we'd had, in which our lives had been in danger, might have been resolved if I'd known I had this skill tree. Maybe Niana and Urch would still be alive. I felt a sharp pain in my palms and realized I was digging my fingernails into them. I flexed my hands, but the anger wouldn't go away. You had no right! My friends died! Mi-san was coming up to me, looking concerned, maybe even a little scared.
Zeke?
I turned away from her, no longer caring how I looked.
I didn't think they were in real danger, Smelly said. I'm sorry, Zeke. I really am. I made a judgment call because the skill tree you have isn't meant to operate on its own. It's supplementary to the main tree, and you don't have it installed. That means it can only operate at full capacity for limited periods of time, and I didn't want to use it unless I thought someone's life was at risk. If I'd believed your friends were in mortal peril, I promise I would have aided them.
That should have been my call, I snarled. They're dead because you didn't trust me.
If I'd made it your call and you had chosen to wait, which was the logical decision, then the blame would be on you instead of me.
I hesitated. It almost seemed as though Smelly had been trying to protect me. Did it actually care about me? Was it possible that it had deceived me not just because it was deceptive and selfish, but for my own good?
I need you to trust me, Zeke. I can control the system. I can max out your abilities like I did at Area 51. You would be essentially unstoppable. Mostly. Pretty much, for a little while. Yeah, I feel good about this.
And when were you going to tell me I could do all this?
When it was convenient and unavoidable, which is now. Hooray.
I'm getting really worried about you, mate,
Steve said. I looked up. Everyone except Alice, who knew what was going on, was surrounding me, sort of crouching, like I was a complete lunatic, like I might hurt them or myself at any moment. No need for alarm. I'm not crazy. It's just that I have a self-important, disembodied intelligence living in my head.
Oh,
Mi-san said.
Is that all?
And how long has that been going on exactly?
Steve asked. A few months now.
And this is the sort of thing you thought we might not be interested in hearing about?
Steve inquired. It asked me to keep quiet about it, I said. And when you have a really obnoxious voice in your head, sometimes doing what it says is best.
Not just sometimes,
Smelly said. Hi, I said, though I didn't do so willingly. Smelly was pulling the strings now. Zeke doesn't like it when I manipulate his physical form, so I'll be brief. You're all inferior and frankly disgusting, but I've come to feel a certain lack of loathing for most of you. Not you, though, Smelly said, pointing at Volonic. Anyhow, do what I tell Zeke to tell you to do, and you'll all be able to continue your brief and ultimately pointless existence. Later, fools.
And we're supposed to believe that's not actually you talking,
Charles said. It does sound improbable, I agreed, running a hand over my face. Believe me, I know that, but you only had to listen to it for a few seconds. I live in fear of it popping in constantly.
Let's assume that we believe you, and that you're not clowning around or completely insane,
Charles said.
Why should we listen to this AI?
The thing bugs me like you wouldn't believe, I said. But it knows what it's doing. It helped me out of some tough scrapes already. Not as much as it could have at times, I snarled. But mostly it's been reliable. It's helped us all. You just don't know about it. And it's not looking to die. If I go, it goes, and it doesn't want to go.
That shuttle,
Colonel Rage said.
That's how you leapt up to the roof.
Give the old man a gold star and an extra eye. I made you think you were being lifted up by a platform, but everyone else saw you pull off some Spider-Man moves.
Yeah, I said. I wasn't even lying to you. It made me think I'd been raised up when I really leapt. It can do that sort of thing, alter my perception.
And this technology is something that anyone can use?
The colonel asked. Right now it's just me, I explained. If we can access the base code in the fortress, then pretty much anyone with Confederation nanite implements can start racking up experience and gaining levels. The colonel had a gleam in his eye. I could see he was thinking about what it would mean to bring this kind of technology back home to the US of A.
Let's suppose all of this is true,
he said.
How does this really change anything? Do you think you can single-handedly gain access to that fortress?
I'm prepared to activate your skill set,
said Smelly.
I'm going to demonstrate stealth mode.
It was like when I believed the stupid rubber suit I was wearing actually worked. I didn't feel any different. I didn't look any different except that there was a faint glow coming off my skin, and I had the sound like my head was in a bucket. Otherwise, everything seemed normal. To me. Alice, who had seen this before, was looking vaguely bored, but everyone else was staring with open eyes, unable to believe what they were witnessing.
I'm convinced, the colonel said.
Me too, said me son.
Let's take that fortress, Steve said. Or rather, you go take that fortress. We'll hang here.